this run as well as Autumn. Welcome, Autumn.
Hello.
So, Nick, I guess we're good to go. You want me to do a little countdown for this one? You ready?
Yeah, this is a long run, so go ahead and get the countdown started, and we'll get going.
All right, you can start in 3, 2, 1, and go. So, Metroid Fusion, lots of things to talk about. We've seen a Metroid Zero Mission run earlier, a game that actually came out 2 years after Metroid Fusion. Fusion and Zero Mission have the exact same engine, but Fusion, as a predecessor, actually has so many different things that many people from the get-go haven't really appreciated when it comes to the Fusion mechanics and the game as a whole. Especially after such a game as Super Metroid. One of the things that we can see from the very first room of the game is that thing that we call the climb, using so many wall jumps to get up these platforms. I think wall jumping being one of the most important and most popular mechanics in the Metroid franchise is usually one of the things we refer to in Fusion. You cannot do single wall jumping like you can do in Zero Mission or Super Metroid. In Metroid Fusion, when you do a wall jump, you instantly get pushed in the opposite direction without a chance to go back towards the wall. If you try and go back towards the same wall, you're actually, you cannot gain any more height, which makes single wall jumping completely impossible in this game.
I'm trying to concentrate to get through these first few rooms. The first 2 or 3 minutes of every Fusion run is very movement heavy. It's very technical.
Indeed, it isn't. It is somewhat very flashy because there's a little technique that we're going to use throughout the entire run that we call the shot canceling. Basically, when we fire a beam or a missile, for instance, right as we get up to the platform, if we fire it at the at the perfect moment where Samus has her feet lined up with the top of the platform, we can instantly start running. It just pretty much lines up Samus with the edge of the platform perfectly and allows you to start running faster. It's something that you're going to see Nick use throughout this entire run. Naturally, one of the things that you usually have to go to, well, you have to go to when it comes to playing Fusion, are the dialogues with your real AI from the computer of your ship telling you where to go. One of the biggest criticism when it comes to Fusion is that it is apparently too linear, you don't have enough liberty, etc. It's something that even in speedrunning we have to deal with, but I guess since the final goal of the game is to speedrun, it is a bit less of a problem, but believe it or not, text mashing actually has a huge impact when it comes to the speedrun of this game. A few years ago, going by in-game time was the way to go when it came to Metroid Fusion speedruns, but like 2 or 3 years ago, we switched back to a real-time method. So since then, text mashing and text sequence actually matter a whole lot because it is a lot more complicated to get through all these text boxes the proper way.
And to give just a little bit of context on that,
go ahead.
We are 3 minutes into the run and already saved probably about 45 seconds just from using the Japanese language cart to get through less text and get through it much more quickly.
Indeed, the start of this game is very text-heavy, so just like Autumn pointed out, the JP version does save a whole bunch of time. It saves almost 3 minutes throughout the entire run compared to the English version. So now that we got our first missiles, we try and make our way out of this little maze that we got ourselves stuck into, as the power in the station seemed to have gone out. So we're just running and we're coming up towards the first boss of this run. First off, we have our first encounter with an eye door, a perfect eye door for that matter. 0 beams and a double. I'm going to explain that a little bit later. These eye doors are a huge point when it comes to speedrunning this game. Very RNG heavy before all these bosses. As Nick collects a few more E-tanks, it is 100% run, so we have to collect everything as we come up to the first boss, Arachnus. Not much to be said. If Nick is lucky, he's not going to have a single roll, but he does actually have one, so a bit of a time loss. Even 2, so that's much worse than it could have gone. Now a fight with the Core X, the most important things with those Core X's is that between every hit that they take is that 3 seconds cooldown as the core is just flashing like this, and Nick did it in 3 cycles right here. What Nick tried to do was to hit 2 missiles on the hitbox, because even though the sprite of the X core is a circle, the hitbox is actually a square. So we can hit 2 missiles on the exact same contact, which skips a cycle, and we simply refer that as a double missile. And if we can do that throughout all the cores that we're going to fight throughout this run, you have a bunch of time to save if you can land doubles on every single core. You've also seen Nick trying to jump through this door as he was falling down. It is a mechanic that we call a door fix. Basically, the door transitions in this game, depending on the spot you are, the camera needs to realign to be perfectly adjusted with the layout of the room, and sometimes it is faster to jump into the door to already align the camera as it is supposed to be with the following of the room. So even though you lose a little bit of time by jumping and having to fall down after a transition, you actually save more time by already lining up the camera than the amount of time it would take for the camera to line up by itself during the transition. The time is only measured in frames. I think the biggest door fixes that you can do are about almost 30 frames, maybe 30 frames at best. And there are like maybe 25 to 30 that you can do at best in 100% run, something like that. Not all of them are very easy to do. Some of them are barely worth it. But it is a mechanic that you can still save a few frames here and there, so may as well make use of that as we... So our first encounter with the scary machine, the SAX.
I want to say I heard if you do all of the door fixes in a 100% run, it's about almost half a minute, maybe 20 seconds or so of total time save.
Yeah, I think I remember like 21.87, something like that, but getting all the frames to actually go your way is extremely tough.
Yeah, then more often than not, you might attempt to do a door fix and actually lose time. But like when I jumped out of that door when Destructor started explaining it, and I grabbed the ledge trying to fall properly. That happens a lot. Yeah,
this one specifically is a bit tough since you actually have to skip the ledge as you're jumping. But right now, Nick entering Sector 1. Pretty much the run is going to be directed as Nick has to explore and clean out all these sectors as the computer orders you to go and do things in those sectors. We're now in Sector 1, which is a reproduction of SR388, if I'm not mistaken. That has been completely affected by the X.
Yeah, a lot of callbacks here to the original Metroid 2 with the enemies that we'll see through this sector, and to give a little bit of a glimpse into the future, we may see some changes as we go through the game in this sector. And then in this room, falling down the West Pirate Fall, Nick actually stung just a little bit in midair to give the missiles time to get rid of the space pirates before falling into them. Definitely a fairly technical room, because it's easy to just take damage from space pirates falling down. And one important part about trying to avoid damage in this sector is, and it's not quite as bad in 100%, but you have to make sure that you have enough missiles to get through all of the stabilizers, as well as an eye door at the end. If you have full health, you guaranteed missile drops whenever you get a kill. Whereas if you take any damage, it's about a 1 in 5 shot to get a green X that refills your missiles.
And since you brought back the subject of the eye doors, it is very good, so I just have a bit of time to explain how they work before we encounter the next. Pretty much, eye doors have two options. Either they expose themselves, or they shoot a beam. You have about one out of 2 chance to get these two patterns, like one of the two. And they can shoot between 0 and 4 beams per cycle. So for the first 2 eye doors, the less that you can do is 2 cycles, because you can get a double missile on the eye. Here we can see a few beams getting fired, and Nick is going to try to set up and get a double missile, which he managed to do. That's pretty good. 2 beams and a double. That is a pretty good eye door. And now going to try and set up to also get doubles on that 4X, which is a bit tougher because the only point of contact for these specific types of core are the eye. And I don't think you got a single one, if I'm not mistaken,
I
fortunately.
think I got the first double, but not the second double.
Okay. And now picking up the charge beam, so missiles are nice because they shoot quite fast, but charge beam is by far the most overpowered version of the charge beam we've ever seen in any Metroid games. The point of that charge beam, well, not necessarily the most powerful, but definitely compared to the rest of your equipment. This charge beam in particular has a little thing in Fusion that we call a flare. The charge beam itself is divided into 2 parts. There are 2 projectiles that come out of the cannon, but when you shoot an enemy point blank, there's a little explosion that happens at the edge of the cannon. So when you're at the point of contact with your enemies, it deals extra damage. This mechanic that Nick is going to use right there to destroy that stabilizer, being just directly in front of it, allows you to one-shot that enemy that blocks the stabilizer, which normally should have taken 3 missiles to die. And that flare mechanic is something that we're going to use throughout the entire run. For bosses, for eye doors most specifically, as I talked about, when you have those regular missiles, the best you can do is 0 beams and 2 cycles by getting a double and then a single missile, as eye doors take 3 missiles to be destroyed. But now that we have charge beam, we can use the flare to make it only 1 cycle, so you can only get 4 beams at the worst from an eye door from now on. Well, before you could get up to 8 if you get a double, and 12 if you don't get a double.
Is this a good time for donations?
It is.
I have a $50 donation from DDG that says, "This will be my final donation this weekend. Shout out to G-Virus, Shoku, Ben, Kishi, who made this event what it's been. I'm sorry I couldn't do as much as I usually do this one, but I'll be back in full force next time. Also, thanks, Nick, for earning me the 10K channel points earlier by like 10 frames."
You're welcome.
That sure was one of a race of a kind. Since we have a bit of time with all these dialogues, I guess I can explain a little bit how the percentage system in this game works. There are so many things to collect in Metroid Fusion when it comes to the 100% category, for the very simple reason that, let's say the major upgrades, all the equipment that Samus gets, all the types of beams, of suits, of missiles, all the power-ups such as crew attack, space jump, high jump, they do not count towards the percentage. The only thing that counts are the missile pack expansions, power bomb expansions, and E-tanks, which is why the 0% category on this game actually exists, as the major abilities do not count towards the percentage.
And Nick is going to be making his way through Sector 2 here to open the Level 1 security locks. Much of the station is locked down when you get into the beginning of the game, and the computer wants to help you get your upgrades so that you can survive, but only wants to let you into certain areas of the station. So throughout the run, we'll be opening up to 4 different layers of security here. The first one will let us go to the data room in Sector 2 to pick up the bombs. Of course, one of the most classic items in the Metroid series. And as we will see going through from a plot perspective here, every time we open up another level of security, we are letting the X in the station infest another portion of the station. And Nick getting a very precise jump there in order to avoid falling down or having to grab onto the ledge, saving just a little bit of time by being able to land right on the upper ledge there and continue walking.
Fusion is filled with all kinds of little strats like that. That little jump, I think, is a 1-frame jump. And it's tough. You don't lose much of anything by missing it, but the game is full of little strats like that add up to quite a bit by the end if you can nail them all.
And as we can see, the SAX has now destroyed the door behind us, so we have to go into uncharted territory. As we can see on the minimap, we are now seeing rooms in green. These are rooms that were kept secret from the navigation system, and we'll have to find another way out of Sector 2 here, as the SAX has sealed us in.
And finding a way out of Sector 2, we will, using those bombs that we freshly downloaded. Bombs that are, unlike the Charge Beam, one of the, let's say, the worst when it comes to the different usage that you can make of them. Bombs take a very long time to explode in this game, and the amount of height compared to your weight is very bad, in the sense that you cannot really do any kind of bomb jumping in this game. There's a little bit of a bomb jumping that you can do by landing a bomb at the apex of your jump, then jumping back into it. It can be quite useful in the randomizer in some places. There's one place in 100% where it's useful, but it only saves like a single second, and it's quite hard to use, so pretty much no one goes for it. So as long as it comes to bombs, they're not really useful on a speed perspective.
Right, in fact, more often we will try to avoid bomb jumping. If you're in a ball form and have no velocity, the bombs will propel you up, and it takes quite a bit of time to land. So oftentimes we will see Nick either unmorphing or even doing a little bit of a jump to avoid getting boosted with the bomb jump. And as we are about to come and get our high jump and spring ball, the spring ball will be used to do short hops just to not waste time to being knocked up in the air.
And not an amazing idol for this one.
No, the luck is coming back after those first two.
Yep, seems like those first two idols were the only good ones you'd get for the rest of the run. But as we saw, you were able to just one-shot it using the power of the Charge Beam, and here comes another RNG heavy boss, Sazubi. Sazubi has 3 cycles that are directed by RNG. The first one he can do between 0 and 3 jumps, the second one between 1 and 4, and the third one between 2 and 5. So on an entire fight, Sazubi can jump between 3 and 12 times. I am not counting the jumps where Sazubi exposes itself, but so far it is not going very well. It seems like you got like 8 or 9 jumps. Like that last one, you definitely got all 5.
Yeah, and while that boss is jumping, there is just nothing you can do until it decides to make itself vulnerable for you.
Well, I guess we can talk about sweet spots too, because I got the sweet spot there.
Indeed. So a sweet spot is the reference of manipulating the Corex towards the destination of where the item it contains will become obtainable. So you want to kill the Corex pretty much very close from the center of the room, which is where the ability will spawn and become obtainable. So naturally, it is way better to kill it right at that spot than in the far corner of the room, where you will have to wait for the ability to just fly towards that spot and be obtainable. Now, one of the things that we see in 100%, we can see also in 10%, is the SAX skip. Usually, we just have to wait for the SAX to get out of this room, but with all the tanks that we have, with a precise setup, we can just run to the SAX that is going to freeze us, and then use a super missile. And with the very positioning that we have, SAX isn't going to really chase us or try and fire back another ice beam at us, so we can just run away.
And also a fun point of reference for when we get our super missiles. We see the SAX does 300 damage with a super missile. The ones that Nick will get later in the run will only do 30 damage. So that just really goes to underscore how much more powerful the SAX is with its equipment than what Samus will get throughout this run.
Yeah, actually, SAX supers deal 100 damage, but before, when you get frozen, you take up to 200 damage, which is something that is going to stay later on when Nick will collect the Varia suit. There's a little SAX chase in which you could get hit by an ice beam, and even though you do not get frozen, since you have the Varia suit, you do take up to 200 damage, so SAX stays a threat, especially when it comes to any percent. But right here, 100%, with all the E-tanks that we're going to collect, it is going to be mostly okay. This game definitely gives you not necessarily too much health, because enemies in Fusion are very powerful. Pretty much the game gives you suits to counter up that damage, but as the game gives you suits, it also upgrades the enemies. So it's a bit of a false resistance. But when it comes to the missiles, at the end of the game, you are going to have 250 missiles, which is fine for a Metroid game. But you're going to have 74 power bombs, which is definitely too much.
And you only pick them up 2 at a time, I believe.
Indeed.
Why did I jump? I did not mean to refill there. I thought I was in the 4th room and I jumped.
Oh well, it happens. Just I guess this very, very safety refill.
Yeah, bonus health. Yeah, I did want to point out that 100% is a very safe run. That trick where you skip the SAX is probably the only point in the run where you have any danger of dying.
Yeah, that's true. And even then, the setup is quite easy to understand. As long as you understand when to fire up that little missile to break the block, it is very straightforward. As soon as you broke that missile, you just let yourself fall down, and as soon as you touch the ground, you hold left, and it works 100% of the time. Hope we're gonna see you do a little, You're not doing many door fixes, honestly.
Oh, is that a door fix?
The one with the E-tank works on both ways.
Oh, shoot.
I honestly...
never learned that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen you do many of them. There, I mean, to be frank, there are a lot that you can do, and yeah, they don't save a whole lot of time, but believe me, there are some very easy ones.
I've learned some of them, but yeah, I just kind of come across them as they happen.
Sector 4 has a bunch of them that works on both ways, so you can definitely save like a second and a half from there.
I'll keep that in mind next time I get back on the grind.
Dread really be taking us out of that grind.
I think that's a door fix, isn't it?
I'm not really sure. I think it is. Yeah, it is a little bit.
There we go.
This room in particular is actually super tricky, especially when the enemies are right up there at the ceiling. It can be super annoying.
Yeah, the enemy positioning in this game is driven by RNG. So in many rooms, you're really just at the mercy of where the enemy decided to spawn and what direction it decided to move on whether you can get through quickly or if the enemy is just going to be in the way.
Now let's see for another I-door. Roll out the dice between 0 and 4. 1 beam. That's good enough. And now we're gonna fight the speedy dragon Saris, holding on to that speed booster. Saris usually take 5 missiles to be destroyed, but with that flare usage, only up to 2 flare shots are going to be required for that fight. Very good RNG on that Saris, giving Nick a proper pattern. Now I'm going to set up for some doubles. 5 missiles are required, so you can get up to 2 doubles, and it seems like Nick is going to get that perfect core fight. Perfect Saris and perfect fight.
Almost a perfect core fight.
Yeah, a little bit of a whoopsie. I guess I jinxed it a bit too early, but it is still fine. Very fast Saris with those 2 shots and 2 doubles on that core. Now with the speed booster, getting through those little bomb blocks that usually are bomb blocks, but as you just mash and somewhat get yourself through the air, you can start a speed booster. As we are collecting more missiles and more equipment on our way out of Sector 4.
Yeah, and at this point in the game, we already have more energy tanks than many runners will pick up in an any percent run throughout the entirety of the run. Just to really underscore how safe of a run from a damage perspective the 100% run is. And now we are going to head over to the pump control in order to drain the water that is being electrified by the exposed wiring throughout the sector. That'll allow us to pick up a couple of items on the way out, as well as preventing us from taking some damage going through here.
BSL scientists were supposed to call the electricians for this one, but as the X invaded the entire station, there was just no way to get a specialist there, so yep, all these cables are just staying out there.
Yeah, I think leaving Sector 4 at this point is probably the only time in the run where 100% is less interesting than any percent, because there's a couple neat skips you can do with the speed booster here that you can't do because you have to collect some missiles that are around the skips.
Indeed. Especially this, like this little hallway in which Nick is running right now. What you can do is in any percent is fall down with the morph ball as you charge up a speed booster right before morphing, and you can get what we call a low height. It's pretty much starting up a shunt spark, that very popular mechanic when you store a speed booster and then release the entire speed. If you do it like right above ground level, which can only be done as you activate it in midair, because if you activate a shine spark from the ground, Samus is gonna elevate herself just a little bit and isn't gonna be hugging the ground. But if you do that low height, you can actually just spark through the entire hallway, and it's something that we do not do in 100% as we need to collect that missile tank in the water that you saw Nick pick up. Also, a little bit of an optimization now that we have Speed Booster. A little thing that we need to explain: to recharge a Shine Spark, as you run into a slope, you're going to start running again, and this is how you can chain Shine Sparks together. And now every single time Nick is going to exit a sector after talking to the computer, he's going to spark towards the exit door because there's a slope right there, and then instantly jump into the elevator to, well, save half a second every single time he exits a sector.
Sounds like I have a few moments. No new donations yet. I just wanted to quickly remind chat that we're still trying to raise up to $5,000 to hit our donation goal for the charity. That would be fantastic if we could get to that number. Any amount of money you can give, even just $1 would be enough to put towards a charity. So if you can, please donate $1. We're still trying to unlock some new tiers, Tier 5 and Tier 6 for the 9 Circles of Delicious Heck. Don't forget that this is the Society's mission is that people are affected by MS can live their best lives as we stop MS in its tracks, restore what has been lost, and end MS forever. We will cure multiple sclerosis while empowering people affected by MS to live their best lives. So, if I'm not mistaken, we've played Metroid 1, Zero Mission. Samus was called to an outpost and discovered that pirates were basically taking these Metroids and using them for nefarious purposes. And then the Galactic Federation says, oh no, we can't have that happen. We gotta go kill all the Metroids on SR, the planet over there, and Return of Samus. And then we had Metroid 3, Super Metroid, where the pirates rebuilt their base while Samus was gone, tried breeding the Metroids and bringing them back, and Samus was like, heck no, you can't have that Metroid, that's the baby Metroid, I'm going to try and save it. We just saw that game, and we also saw the parasites get released in Samus Returns, and now they're here, back on this planet that you're on right now, and you're basically doing the same thing you were doing on the Return of Samus. Instead of killing all the Metroids, you're trying to kill all of the parasites, right?
Yeah.
That's very much how it goes.
I'm sure everything will be fine with that, though. What could possibly go wrong?
And I believe there's an extra cutscene that we get for doing 100% completion in Fusion, isn't there? Something that has like a little bit of a teaser for Dread without spoilers.
No, not that I know of. I think you're
You
thinking
get
of
a
the.
slightly different ending screen.
I think you're thinking of the Samus Returns ending.
Samus Returns does have a specific thing for when you get Hundo.
And now
Oh,
we are fighting the
box.
only boss in the game that does not get infected by a Core X, as well as one of the most popular music tracks in the game. And unfortunately, Nick making quick work of it, so we don't get to jam out. Although, I suppose going fast is better than good music.
We did get another $5 donation from Destructor. Thank you so much, Destructor. No message was attached, so thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Destructor.
You're welcome. I don't need to put messages. I can just put my own stuff already if I want. But not a lot more to say. Support the charity, support the marathon, and the stream if you can. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching and already supporting this. You guys are awesome. But now leaving Sector 3, we have acquired the super missiles, and now I guess we can we don't need to rely as much on that charge beam flare, as with those super missiles we have triple damage on our missiles. One thing that we need to mention a little bit is that you can only have 2 missiles on the screen at the same time, which can be a little bit of a problem when you actually need a high DPS. And one thing that is pretty important, especially towards the double mechanics that we use on those X-Core fights, is that every single time you upgrade your missiles, the what's the word for it? The cooldown between every shot is a little bit longer. So the more you upgrade your missiles, the tougher it gets to get doubles on the ice cores, especially when you get the very last missile upgrade.
Also, this computer that you keep talking to, this is Adam, right?
Yes. No spoilers, no. Yes, this is Adam.
I'm not sure when that's revealed in this game. I just know it's revealed at some point.
It is revealed towards the end, in the very last dialogue before fighting the SAX. So far, the only thing that Samus knows is that she was handed this new ship, as the previous one, or orange one, has been destroyed in the asteroid belt, in which she got herself stuck as she was infected by the X. And the Federation's condition for her to get that new ship was that she was going to have to obey to that AI attached to the ship. Something that she really doesn't like, because she doesn't like orders. She doesn't like having to respect what everyone is saying. So when she listens to that computer, she thinks a lot about Adam Malkovich, her previous commander. And it's only towards the end that she actually understands that the spirit of Adam has been incorporated into that AI, as the computer calls her lady in the very last line of dialogue.
And now we are going to get to see our second SAX skip of the run.
I just got to grab what we call the free tank in this game by making use of animations continue happening in the background while you're collecting items, so I can lay the bomb behind the E-tank and pick it up, and the bomb explodes while I'm looking at text, and it's a nice little time save there.
A much easier and safer skip of the SAX than the one we could have seen previously, as all we need to do is just shoot the SAX to get its attention, and it's going to try to follow us down there, and you can just run out.
We have a raid party of 11 from Les Pixels Produce. Thank you so much, Les, for that raid. Thank you for stopping by, sharing the channel to everyone. We're trying to raise money for the Multiple Sclerosis National Society, making sure that we have enough money to help support people that have multiple sclerosis. We're very close to the $4,500 goal and our total goal for the stream is going to be $5,000. So let's see if we can get there, chat.
And yet another boss, the Megacore X. This time Nick is gonna simply try and take that damage to get inside the hitbox of the Megacore and make use of that flare, dispatching of it in 4 cycles, and now getting these doubles to work. 2 doubles on that core, so that's pretty nice, and getting a very good sweet spot. You know that you got a very good sweet spot when like the envelope of the core is still around as the text box is right here, which was the case on that boss fight. 2 doubles out of 3 and a sweet spot, which is a pretty successful fight.
Yeah, for comparison, hopefully we won't see, but you'll probably definitely see later on. I'll try to get the sweet spot on other bosses, and if it looks like I'm jumping in the core 2 or 3 times and it's just kind of wiggling in place, that means I didn't hit the sweet spot.
Sector 6 escape can be a little tricky towards the last half of it, as there are going to be many enemies in our way, especially those blue balls that we call the puffers. As soon as you hit them, they release some toxic gas that has a very wide hitbox, so you can definitely be in troubles if you hit them and if they don't really have the right trajectory. There's a lot of adaptation that comes into this escape. But so far, very solid movement, especially that spring ball out of the tunnel isn't very, very easy to do.
Yeah, and as you see there, the puffer just in the middle of the path, no way to really dodge it, and even if you kill it to get it out of your way, then you get you get to get hit by the gas that it leaves in its wake.
Already over 100 missiles for this run. They accumulate fast, and we're only 36 minutes into the run. We still have more than an hour of gameplay to follow.
And conveniently, now that we just got our various suit that resists the cold, we can actually go into the ice level over in Sector 5 that has a data room where we can download our next upgrade. And of course, we will need to open another level of security once we are there as well.
Indeed, as the different X's actually understand Samus' intentions and decide to destroy every single data room that it can find. So every time we need to open more security doors to have access to more data room, which by extension unfortunately means giving them more free room to the X for them to infest the station. But we have no choice. We are left with almost nothing to work with. We need that firepower to fight off the SAX. And just like Autumn mentioned, this Vario suit that is going to allow us to resist those extreme temperature environments, like before we couldn't survive. Oh, well, we could survive, but we would take damage from from heat and from cold temperatures. Now that we've got that Vario suit, we can also assimilate the blue X's. When we get into Sector 6 earlier, there are those blue hexes trying to chase us around. They were made cold by the cold of Sector 5 and then came back in Sector 6 and tried to chase Samus. Since Samus has some Metroid DNA and Metroids are actually very vulnerable to ice, they pretty much try to kill Samus from within by being assimilated by her. But now that we've got that Vario suit, we can freely assimilate those blue X's and gain much more health than simple yellow X's. And understanding that, now all the blue X's are actually trying to dodge Samus and run away from her.
And meanwhile, Nick is just absolutely tearing through Sector 5 here.
Excellent movement in using that charging of those missiles to destroy those waivers.
Yeah, the waivers can be all over the place in these rooms, and one thing that we will use on those a lot, especially after we get our next upgrade, is called a pseudo screw attack. Whenever you have charge beam, if you have a charge shot and do a spin jump, you will do damage to an enemy that you come in contact with. It does go up with different beams that you get, And if you have enough damage to kill the enemy in one shot, you can actually take it out and not take any damage. And we do have enough damage output to kill the waivers with one pseudo screw attack.
Also,
So
mechanic
this
that we. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that's this is one sector where that is incredibly useful to us.
This is true. One mechanic that we haven't really talked about as well is the fact that when you start to charge a beam before a door transition, or as you're entering a door transition, the beam will come out fully charged as you exit the door, which is something that can be used in a few places. And just like Nick did right there, charging that beam and instantly releasing it after the door to open that gate, which allows you to charge a speed booster like we saw earlier. It's something that we definitely use in many places, and also a mechanic that we call R shooting. Basically, by pressing the R button, which allows us to open the cannon to fire missiles, if we are in a spin jump and we have a charge beam, firing a beam or a missile for that matter during a spin jump breaks the spin. But if you have a charged beam and you press R, it's going to release the charge shot without breaking the spin jump, which is a mechanic that is going to be very useful in 100% towards the later stages of this run. But so far, only very good movement to be seen. Very good also management on all these enemies.
Yeah, especially now, our missiles are no longer as effective at taking out most of our enemies. In Metroid Fusion, you can't unequip any items. We just picked up the ice missiles in the Sector 5 data room. So now, the missiles will never kill anything in one shot, as the shot that would take them down will freeze the enemy and you need an additional shot.
And it seems like we've got a little bit of an emergency, so everyone get your Franker-Z's out in chat because the computer tells us that we need to hurry.
It's time for Franker-Z.
Get your Franker-Z's in chat.
I don't know if I remember the song, if you want to sing the Franker-Z song.
Oh gosh, I can't even remember the start. Bark, look at the Franker-Z, bark, here I see bark so free, bark, 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 Franker-Z. I think that's it. I wasn't in rhythm with the notes of the run, but I think that's how it goes.
No, I think that sounds right. I got my own volume turned down so I can hear the commentary and everything, but it felt right.
I think it's mostly when, you know that room with the 4 stretchies when you fire down ice missiles into them to fall down?
That's when Franker-Z happens.
Yeah, I think this is on that exact time where they actually sing. But right now we have to make our way again through this entire Sector 3 area. And we're going to visit a few new zones that were heated up, and now that we've got that Vario suit, we can really move into these heated sections, as it seems like the main boiler has been hacked by an axe, and the entire station is going to melt. So we need to rush as we make our way over these big lava pits. And using those freshly acquired ice missiles, fresh ice missiles, I'm so funny, that was not even intentional, to freeze those stretchies and use them as platforms. Very nice movement as well during this entire sequence. Right here as well, using the charge beam and the R shooting, like I talked about earlier, to destroy that little nova on the ceiling and then follow it up by an ice missile. And a new encounter with a new boss, which means a new eye door. Let's see what we get to the lottery this time. Not amazing luck on these doors. 2 beams, it's not the worst, but you would much rather have 0 or 1 than 2.
Yeah, and going up against our second beam core of the run, we have another one where it opens up the eye of the Core X, and whenever you hit it, it also shoots out the beam that you are going to pick up. And the hitboxes on those are not as generous as on most of the core X's, so those tend to be some of the more difficult ones to get doubles on. But now we have our wide beam. This is Metroid Fusion's answer to the Spazer beam. And one of the more popular upgrades in this, it makes the beam have a significantly larger hitbox, as well as now you have 3 particles to do damage instead of 2. And this will make much quicker work of many of these enemies that would take a number of shots before.
Also makes it a lot easier to just cover up an entire hallway as you're trying to run into the different rooms. You can pretty much just spam your beam freely. You don't necessarily need to be this precise to dispatch of all the opposition in your way. Now, a room that I really like, both as a viewer and as a player, is this climb, as we are going to use our ice missiles to freeze all these stretchies and the ledge on the left side to do many wall jumps to just climb it. Beautiful movement, beautiful execution. So satisfying to watch.
Yeah, that is a very satisfying room to watch run. I can't speak to getting it. That is one that I haven't been able to get down quite yet.
That's part of what drew me into the Game Boy Metroids, is I thought the movement looked so cool, I just wanted to give it a shot myself, but it turns out I could pull it off. Here I am.
And here is one of the best of his kind.
Actually, speaking of beautiful movement, we have a strategy coming up that the community refers to as the Impossible Strut.
Oh gosh.
Because it is impossible to do it.
It's absolutely impossible when on PB pace, dude. I'm telling you. This is terrible.
Yeah, it's the easiest strat in the world when you're practicing it.
Everything is free in practice.
I just love how out of every trick, I'm not even in 100%, but in just the regular speedrun, this one is the impossible strat.
Yeah, this is true. And also it seems like that the multiverse machine has been activated since we didn't save the animals in the previous Super Metroid runs, but right now we are going to save the animals, so I don't really know in which timeline we are. I don't know, we're playing The Legends of Zelda, but it seems like right now we have a bit of a paradox in our hands.
We're just gonna further discredit the mostly true completion run earlier.
Oh, hell yeah. And here it comes, they're showing up for this little impossible strat. Absolutely impossible to do. Do not try this at home. Even Nick is not going to get it because it's the impossible strat.
I told you, it's impossible.
Impossible. So
we do have our commentator's curse today.
Yeah, I'm doing a great job with this one. Nice little shine break right there. So what happened right there was that Nick ran past these 2 speed booster blocks at the perfect timing so that he, as Samus, is above solid ground, so he can just start a spark, but also a little bit onto that speed booster block to break it, start a spark, and then release it a bit later. Very fast animals as they came out of their hiding spots super quickly. That was very good, because these animals, the positioning in which they are as you enter the room is random, so they can take a random amount of time to get out of their cage. And this time they were very, very fast.
Yeah, the animals, I guess, might be a little bit afraid that they got killed earlier today, hoping that if they don't cost us too many frames, maybe they'll get to survive this time.
Perhaps.
Metroid Fusion, of course, does not allow us to kill the animals, although in the randomizer that came out over the summer, a lot of runners have finally gotten their chance to be able to not save the animals and instead save the frames. Paradoxically, that makes our viewers want us to save the animals in this game rather than kill them.
I remember getting up there and saving the animals on my first few scenes, and I was like, wait, why am I doing this?
And in that dialogue there, it seems like even Adam is not impressed with the animals, as he's just, if you listen to or watch the dialogue there, Adam is just disappointed that you didn't find a human up in the habitation deck. And we have now confirmed that all humans other than Samus on the BSL research station are in fact dead.
And what better than to dispatch of more humans than downloading a nuclear weapon, as Adam points us towards the Sector 5 navigation room where power bombs are now ready to be downloaded and put to use.
And in fact, this will be the only time in the entire run that we get 2 items in the same data room. We managed to get back down here before the X could kill this one.
Perhaps to make up for the fact that we never actually got to use the Sector 6 one, as the X downloaded the Vario suit before us.
And a lot of this will look very familiar, as we just did this movement not long ago, and the big difference here is having Wide Beam, we can take the enemies out a little more quickly, and we already have our yellow doors open.
Yeah, if you could read the Adam text on the way here, this is the shortest one, because you get back into Sector 5 and Adam just says, "You know where the data room is." And then he shuts up.
Oh. A little bit of a tricky wall jump to your right there, unfortunately. A bit of a head bump into that corner, which loses a few seconds.
Yeah, I tried to go for the quick strat there. The wall jump saves a couple seconds by not having to freeze the Ripper, but the downside is if you miss the wall jump, you fall below the Ripper and have to climb back up to it.
And it is a little trickier than it looks also, just with the way that the background scroll, it can make it a little bit trickier to line up the visual cue, because until you have a lot of practice into it, looks like you'll be at a slightly different point.
That's
and
like
we
what I
have
was
another
saying.
essay on sync.
That's like what I was saying at the beginning of the run, is this whole run is filled with little tricks like that, that on their own, that might save a second, the next trick might save a second. And by the end of the run, you can get a pretty good time if you can nail most of them. There's very few people that can nail all of them in one run. But people like that are why there's such a large difference between first and second place and second and the rest of the runners, is the consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those runs where, when you're watching it, nothing individually looks like, oh, how would anyone ever do that? And then you try to get it into a run and find out that getting all of these consistently together is a lot harder than it looks, and you can easily bleed minutes a few seconds at a time.
That might not work. Oh, that didn't work.
In this room, just for a minor upgrade, we have to freeze the Rippers to be able to springball across over some crumble blocks. Unfortunately, unlike Super Metroid, we cannot just hold jump to get a springball jump on those. And also crumble blocks at the end there to jump over, just waiting for anyone doing this for their first time to just walk right in there thinking they've gotten through the puzzle and fall back down.
Yeah, there's a lot of puzzle rooms in Fusion that are set up like Kaizo Mario hacks in a way, where you kind of think you know the solution and then you get trolled and then you're like, alright, you go back and you do it again, you get a second troll.
Alright, so as you are exiting Sector 5 for that second time, Nick, it is time for me to bid you farewell. Good luck on your run, and good luck as well, Adam, for the rest of the commentary.
Thanks, Destructor. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Destructor, for coming by and helping out, doing commentary on this Metroid Fusion run, and also for the donation, and also for, supporting the charity and being here doing runs and everything else. It's great having you. Hopefully you can watch the end of the marathon.
You're very much welcome. Thank you very much, everyone. See ya.
Yeah. And then Nick heading back onto the main deck to go back to Samus's ship. That way we can give Destructor a ride home. And looks like we've got a little bit of a Ridley problem in our freezer.
Not anymore. I think I already killed him. I don't think he's going to come back later.
Yeah, I mean, how many times can Ridley possibly come back? And the elevator getting shut down on the way up. But we are able to find a couple of power bombs stuck way back in this maintenance dock period. As well as this room has some speed booster blocks, but it's actually faster to just lay a power bomb to get to that missile, and even in any percent, quicker to go there than speed boosting through the room, even though speed booster is what you would think would make you go fast. And Nick fired a couple of missiles into the wall there to time with a power bomb to make sure that those power bomb blocks will get blown up right as he's going through the door transition, to make sure when he gets off of the ship here that he'll be able to get to the next section of the game. And Adam is showing us, hey, there's some animals on the ship. What's up with that? So Adam actually called us all the way back to the ship just to ask us why these animals are here. And with that, the cocoons that we have seen, which used to be the enemies in Sector 2, have now hatched, and we have key hunters out. And key hunters can do quite a bit of damage if they catch you with their singer. I think it maxes out at 127.
It's definitely over 100 because in a 0% run where you don't have any E-tanks, they can one-shot kill you. It is very deadly at this point in a low percent run.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that's not our problem today.
Yeah, it's really mean timing too, because Yakuza here is arguably the hardest boss of the 0% run.
I'd probably put him behind Nightmare, but we'll get to Nightmare when we get to him.
Yeah, it's definitely an argument to be had, which I will trust you, as I also don't have a 0% run under my belt at this point. But we are going to now see not Arachnus that was the first boss, but the spider boss on the main deck. This is Yakuza. And this boss can grab Samus, and we actually want to get grabbed here. Firing some ordnance before, as soon as it spawns on the top of the room. And it can go in a diagonal pattern from 1 to 4 times. And Nick getting a single cycle on this, able to get to the second phase where it just spins around the room and throws garbage at you. But by wiggling out, getting grabbed and wiggling out, that actually saves some time over the animation from the spider going back and forth across the room in a zigzag pattern. And getting yet another sweet spot on the space jump core. And it's a good thing we found space jump here, because without that, there's no other way out of this room. And I agree with chat that that boss is definitely reminiscent of one of the bosses in the first Mega Man X game. And now that we've turned back on the auxiliary power reactor, Adam's telling us, okay, but we need to find out what is killing the main reactor here. And this room having a lot of key hunters to need to dodge. And we're going to clear out some vines and go try to track down the source. And it looks like it leads us to Sector 2. Just freezing the SAX before it has a chance to see us. It will start following here, but...
You always gotta make sure to casually walk all over the SAX in this part. That part's very crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting through it, the SAX, even though it has Wave Beam, does not know it can fire through the floor to shoot at Samus. For as terrifying as it can be in a casual playthrough, the SAX really does not have much in the way of AI at all.
I did a couple jumps in the previous room to stall for some time, to let another power bomb go off and blow up some power bomb blocks, because we'll be coming back to that room later for the cleanup.
Good call on that. And we are about to fight yet another boss here. Let's see how many beams we get. Just a 1-beam eye door, not bad. And now we are going up against Neteru. This boss is the only boss in the game that takes damage from power bombs, which is why Nick laid one coming into the room. It does shoot some spores that we can avoid by standing at the far right, and in the 100% category with just a million missiles, you can just stand there and spam missiles at it. It is a very satisfying way to take out this boss. In other categories, you would have to mix in some power bombs and charge shots. And there we see what happens when you don't get the sweet spot, as it can be a variable amount of time before the core actually becomes active so that you can pick up your upgrade. So that is why Nick keeps trying to go for the sweet spots to avoid having to wait to get his items. And now that we've killed that boss, many of the big vines that were throughout the sector have now disappeared, so we have some more routes available, as well as some items to pick up.
I guess I can talk about the plasma beam now that we have it. In some ways, the plasma beam is an upgrade from the wide beam. It deals damage per frame and it goes through enemies for multiple frames, so most of the time it does more damage. But the damage per frame is actually less than one shot from the wide beam does more damage from one shot from the plasma beam. So for most of the time that won't matter, but this weapon actually does less damage to Nightmare for that reason, because it doesn't penetrate Nightmare.
Right, and to answer a question in chat, the plasma beam that Nick just described is in fact what we got from that last boss. And now we are going to check in with Adam and see what errand he needs us to run next. That's very much the core gameplay loop of the game, is go do some things, probably fight a boss, and then go talk to Adam and see what he wants you to do. And speaking of Nightmare, who Nick had just mentioned, we find out that the boss that was kept in the Frozen Sector 5 has in fact come out and is in jeopardy of destroying the entire station, so we need to go and put an end to it. And very ominous music to guide our way there.
Yeah, I really like how they hype this boss up in the game. If you're playing casually, so you're taking your time talking to Adam and exploring, and you're fighting the spider and the Tori, and like it seems like the X are evolving, and you talk to Adam and he just says, Sector 5 is shaking. You need to go look at it, like the whole sector. So you get to Sector 5 at this point and he says, everything's gone. You need to go figure out what's going on in there.
We've seen Sector 5 a couple of times in this run, but it's going to look just a little different now that Nightmare is out. And Nick taking a step to the left here to get just enough time to build up speed with the speed booster. There are 3 different ways that you can do a speed booster here, as well as doing what's called a space boost by doing a series of space jumps. And it is a bit forgiving in that if you miss one Shine Spark store, you have a couple of ways to back it up. The space boost is quickest, but you have to be moving at an upward velocity through half of the doors. Otherwise, it will snap you to the snap you to the floor through the door transition and kill your space jump and your speed boost. And we are now stuck in the underwater portion of Sector 5, as it has been broken open significantly and some of the water has melted. And a lot of the Bessman space pirates are just kind of hanging out in Sector 5 for whatever reason. And because we are going through 100%, there are a number of items locked by the power bombs here that we'll have to pick up on our way. Jumping to lay a power bomb on the left side of the room. With power bombs, you cannot grab onto a ledge while the animation from the power bomb is present on the screen. So we lay it at the beginning of the room, that way it goes off and the explosion is finished before we actually get to the portion of blocks that it opens up so that we can immediately grab onto the ledge.
That's a dangerous E-tank to grab that way, by the way. There's a hidden morph ball tunnel that you can bomb in the ceiling to kind of go through a maze and get it safer. But the ballsy strat is just to dive into the crumble blocks and try and grab it.
Yeah, definitely quicker to get it using the crumble blocks, though, and looks far more swag, and I sometimes think that swag is more important than going fast in a speedrun, although not everyone agrees. And here is Nightmare. This is the thing that is wrecking half of the station. And this boss is quite the challenge. It actually moves in the same pattern as the core X's that we have been fighting throughout the run. So there will be an invisible point in the room that they sort of are guided to oscillate around and toward. And you can't see it. You'll also see that X's will try to gravitate toward a certain area, so Nightmare just behaves like a large core, except with a much larger hitbox. And conveniently, now that we are underwater with no real way out of here, we get the gravity suit, just in time. And Nick has to run to the left of the room before leaving. There are speed booster blocks outside of this room blocking the path. And if you don't go back to the right side of the room, you won't have enough time to build up speed and will just run straight into the wall. Or if you go right first, you just bonk into the door because it doesn't open quickly enough. And now we are sort of off the script that Adam has set for us, and are just trying to get out of this nightmare area.
And here we get to show off our shooting as well, to open doors while space boosting without losing your space boost.
And space boosting is when you have full speed and use a shine spark, or not a shine spark, but use the speed booster to do space jumps. It is generally the fastest way to move through the game whenever you have the ability to get one. Actually, the 100% task in this room does a space boost through it. Because when you have a speed charge, you have 1 frame when you land on the ground to store a shine spark. And with a task, you can horribly abuse that, but that would not be RTA viable to get the space boost through that room. Laying a power bomb going into the room, and that's something that you see a lot with power bombs throughout this run. We like to lay them early going out into a room so that they've blown up the thing that we need blown up before we get to it. And just going down through this flooded portion of the game, we're going to open our last level of security, the red level 4 security locks. And there are a couple of ways to proceed from here. There is a strat called Secret Message, which we will not be showing off in this run. But you can actually skip the next item, which is diffusion missiles, by carrying a series of shine sparks to go back up that shaft that we came down. And you can run around to the entrance of Sector 4 and skip having to get the next item in the data room. However, you just get complimented on getting through there and then told to go get the item anyway. So, while it is a very minor sequence break, the game will not let us go off sequence. In fact, this game's so well put together, it took at least 16 years before the community found our first actual sequence break. Which is a trick called memory corruption that is a whole nother category unto itself. But we're just going to go through the old-fashioned way through Sector 4, not the least of which because we do need to pick up a couple of items along the way. For example, the missile pack down here, a room that we lovingly call the Thunderdome. As you go down there, and suddenly about 6 enemies spawn in.
I hadn't heard that one before. I like that name.
That is actually one thing that's come about from Fusion finally getting a randomizer this year, is we have more commentary and thus more names coming up for rooms.
Here's probably one of the coolest tricks in the 100% route coming up is the Shine Spark chain. I'll explain it after I get it. But that stretchy that went from the floor to the ceiling, the only way to kill it is with a screw attack or a speed booster. And we don't get screw attack until much later, but we're here now. So we have to store the spark, spark through the stretchy in a way that we can store it a second time, and then go back and pick up the missile while we're there. And then release the spark back into the hallway so that we can finally spark through the speed blocks that are protecting the power bomb block and get all those items all at once.
And there's just enough of a slope in that room to make that possible. The intended strat involves going into that room, being blocked by the stretchy, running all the way left, falling down below, then running across another room below that to shine spark up. And we're speedrunners here. We don't have time to do all that. Also, this room, the purple barrier called a Giron, it spawns in. You need to use super missiles, power bombs, or eventually screw attack to get through those. However, this one takes just long enough to spawn that we just run into the room, jump over, and walk through before it has a chance to get there. And with this power bomb tank, Sector 4 is the first sector that we have in fact full cleared in the game. And not terribly long, once we get our screw attack, we will go onto our cleanup phase to pick up the rest of the items throughout the game. There will be a quick visit through Sector 4 just to get between a couple of other sectors, but that is one place where we will not need to pick up any more items.
Yeah, this game is actually so linear that even in the 100% route, up until Ridley, this is still very much similar to any percent, but with a lot of extra items. And once we get screw attack from Ridley, that's when the game really opens up and we can do like a victory tour and collect everything we couldn't get before.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome that we get to do that much cleanup just for how fun some of the movement is with full upgrades. Also, from a story perspective, Adam just scolded Samus there for opening level 4 security locks without being told to. I guess she was supposed to just stay locked in the underwater portion of the station forever. And Nick picked up diffusion missiles, which the Federation sent over and meant to cancel because they don't want Samus getting too powerful. That's also why we had to get Plasma Beam off of a boss, even though that's the only way to kill SAX. The Federation doesn't want Samus engaging the SAX, because there are some secrets to discover on this research station. And chat, if anyone remembers the security robot box that we saw back in Sector 3, we might be about to visit our friend again soon here, and more importantly, hear its amazing music track.
Now that the box is infected with the X-Parasite, we really like to call him the X-Box.
You know, I really wish we could get one more fight against it so that we could get an Xbox 360 in here. Maybe if we gave it the space jump ability so it could move like what Yakuza does. And getting a quick store on that Shine Spark charge, not easy to get on a very small slope before walking into the door to spark up that shaft. And let's get ready for another boss battle. Having to use a power bomb to open up those monkey bars so that we have somewhere to stand to, or not stand, but to shoot from. So the water here is electrified because Xbox is actually malfunctioning here and has some electric current coming out of it. It is electrifying the water. Once we take care of the first phase of the boss, as we see here, the water is now perfectly safe to stand in, although with 13 energy tanks, there's really no threat to us from anything in this game. And this is the second to last of the beam cores that we'll see, with the smaller hitbox, and this one is one I believe you cannot get any doubles on, or at least not in a way that saves enough time to be worth trying, but now we have to wait.
The excuse for that one is it's TAS only. There's I haven't seen it myself, but you have to set it up in a way that's pixel perfect, and then the double becomes frame perfect, and it's not human doable.
That is good to know. I could never remember if that was one that we couldn't do or just wasn't worth us doing.
I think there's one runner in the community that goes for it. And maybe he's gotten it once or twice that I know of. Like, ever.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We have quite a few strats in this game that are technically possible to do, but the amount of time save that they give you isn't really worth how much you lose whenever you miss them in 90% of runs. And we see here now that the Federation has been keeping some Metroids on the station, so much for the last Metroid dying in Super Metroid. They make quick work of one of the SAXs, and then we just yeet that part of the station. And I'm sure there are no more Metroids anywhere in this game. Aside from Samus, of course. And now we just have to have Adam yell at us some more, because we shouldn't have gone there, and we shouldn't have detonated that part of the station. But now we are going to make our return to Sector 1. On this part, we do have to listen to some more of Samus's thoughts, but this part, unlike the earlier part that is modeled after SR-388, this part is a definite callback to Turian from Planet Zebes. And we will, in fact, be on our way to go fight Ridley. But first we have to steal a couple of items here, such as yet another energy tank. This game has 20 energy tanks, and definitely I wouldn't say needs that many, but the devs really wanted to make sure that every item was 1% of the total, so almost every area of the station has quite a few things to find. And we see our first Golden Pirate. The Golden Pirates are meant to only be able to be shot from behind. However, if you shoot them and then the game checks based on what direction Samus is facing, so you shoot them and then turn around to face the way they are, and the game thinks that you shot them from behind, and you get the kill much more easily than trying to position them.
My timing is way off on these pirates. I was turning around before shooting. That usually doesn't stop me there. But I made it.
It can definitely be easy to get locked into. Like, once you have the wrong timing on one shot, it can be easy for it just to get stuck in your muscle memory for a second. And let's see how many I-beams we're going to get here. Just one I-beam. We are getting some pretty good luck on our I-doors, and that is actually the last I-door we will see. And everybody cover your ears, because Ridley is here, and Ridley is loud. This boss has by far the most health of anything on the station here, with 4,500 HP. To put that in perspective, with the fully powered up missiles we have, they do 45 damage, so it would take 100 missiles to kill. A plasma beam rather, doing damage per frame. Nick was shooting all of those shots at an angle to make sure that the beam stayed in Ridley's hitbox as long as possible. And getting some good doubles and a sweet spot on the last item before cleanup. We now have Screw Attack. And a fun note, this game actually does have single wall jump programmed into it if you have Screw Attack, but having Space Jump disables the ability to wall jump whatsoever. So that is functionality that is built into the game that we can never actually see in the base game. And now we have to avoid all navigation rooms until we have collected 100% of items. Once we go into a navigation room, that will start the sequence of events that send us to the end of the game and will lock a lot of doors. But with the cleanup in mind, there are screw attack blocks all over the station that let us get between the sectors without ever having to go through a navigation room. And that is how we're going to go complete our cleanup. In Sector 1 in particular, we go up here. This room has some water in it. We move quicker through it with Gravity Suit. So this is one item that gets saved for cleanup, even though it could be collected the first time through the sector, because it is a little bit quicker to get it with Gravity Suit. And having screw attack enemies are no longer much of a threat in any capacity. Screw attack makes Samus invulnerable to almost all sources of damage, as well as dealing a ton of damage to any enemy that she comes in contact with. So her body is now the most potent weapon in the game. And the irony of so many of these items are only available to be picked up during the cleanup section of the game. Just with the ways that we need to get around and how many places of the station are locked off to us for large sections of the game. But once you get to this point, we already have so much ammo and 100% that none of what's being picked up here is going to be useful for the speedrun in any capacity other than the fact that it is on the checklist of things that we need to get.
The name of the game in the cleanup here is still saving frames in every room if possible, so even with space jump and with all the upgrades, I'm still trying to do my shot cancels and stay on the ground as much as possible. Just not drop space jumps like I did just there. There's a couple maneuvers I did early on in Sector 1 to try and cut out one of the door transitions, and I was able to pull it off, so the speed booster I did in the Charged Boss's room, I did without having to run into all three rooms below it. So even though we're at the end of the game, it actually gets more and more technical as the run goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Having more tools available gives more things that you can need to do here. And that's good that you pointed out needing to do the, trying to focus on doing shot cancels and not go into the air. One thing I don't think we had mentioned that Samus's airspeed is 1/2 of her running speed. So in this game, wherever possible, we do want to be running, preferably with Speed Booster. And so that's why even with Space Jump allowing us to get infinite jumps, unless we have something with like a Space Boost, as we saw there, to get through those blocks, we would much rather just not have to go through a lot of jumps. And using the screw it, we went through from Sector 1 to Sector 3 on our tour, and there are a few items here that are locked behind various upgrades. Trying to get a bomb jump to go into this room, you do have to do that very precisely to make sure Samus has no velocity, and the bomb jump that Nick was trying to get there is to boost him up into the alcove before he is able to use the power grip, so while the power bomb animation is still on screen. And that is yet another of the micro optimizations that we try to go for, that if you get it, it saves fractions of a second, but those fractions of a second add up over the course of the run. And so
Yeah.
with this,
The Sector 3 cleanup has actually gone through some changes when we switched. The community used to time the speedruns by the game time that's displayed at the end of the game, and the game time only increments during the game, so it doesn't count door times or atom text or loads or any of that. So after switching to real time, one of our runners, Rezarin, was taking a look at the 100% route and realized that we could get items at the bottom of Sector 3 in a different order. And it's slower in the game because we cut out a lot of the shine sparks and space boosts that made this quick through the rooms, but we go through less doors as a result, so it's actually faster to do the slower movement and skip some of the doors in this area. I do actually. Do you need the time? It's actually exactly 1 hour and 25 minutes right now.
and now getting back into this and bringing in the difference between RTA and in-game time, that is also why we're running this category on the Japanese version. Unlike most games, the Japanese version was the second version to come out of the game. The English version came out ahead of that. And this version has a couple of bug fixes. So if you're going for optimizing for in-game time, the North America version is faster because there are some clips that can be done by freezing enemies that are not possible to do in the Japanese version of the game. But since we're going for real time, just the amount of time saved in text alone will completely dwarf anything that could be saved in terms of getting around a little bit more glitchily. And now coming into Sector 5, and we have already picked up almost everything in the sector. Just a couple of items left to pick up that are directly on the way to Sector 6. And one quick optimization there, using the ice missiles to freeze those pancakes as they go up and be able to land on top of them to save time over trying to space jump up, because when you are space jumping, you have to fall a certain distance before you can get the next jump. Whereas if you land on a platform with or a frozen enemy with a shot cancel, you can start jumping immediately. And with this missile tank in a room that the community has started calling "I Can't Believe It's Not Sector 6", we have now completed yet another sector of our cleanup, and are about to go into one of the most impressive parts of the game to watch, as we're going to have a couple of, at least one space boost here, I think two of them.
I'm gonna go for it.
I just want to quickly come in and remind everyone what we're doing here. We're trying to raise money for the National Society of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing that. We've raised so far quite a bit of money here. It's $4,289.80. We're shooting to hit $5,000 before the end of this run. We're getting pretty close to the end of this run, though, so we'll see if we can get there, chat. I'm hoping you can do it.
I know I believe in chat.
Well, you guys gotta hurry up. I got about 10 minutes left in this run, hopefully, if all goes well. Get those donations in while you got time to do it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we are going back down into the restricted area. There is one item out in space that we can get to. Normally, the game expects you to use a shine spark to get that item, but we don't want to go all the way up to the top, so just jumping through with a speed charge and space jumping up. That way, Nick can fall back down into Sector 6. and be ready to go back out and clean up items on the way out.
That item in space we actually can't get early. The speed blocks are there, but there's additional solid blocks above them for some reason. And after we encounter the SAX and blow up that part of the ship, the solid blocks are gone.
And the developers just said that they really want us to do some backtracking.
There's a safe strat in this room that's a little slower than the fastest strat, but it's a lot easier to pull off. That I tried. It's RNG if you can get it, but you may have seen there's a couple ouches in this room that kind of walk around randomly, and there's one that might randomly be walking towards these crumble blocks. And what you want to have happen is have him walk towards the crumble blocks, and you can fire a diffusion missile to freeze him on top of the crumble blocks. But since it's random, if he's not going that way, it takes minutes for him to come back around. And you want to just do a frame-perfect crumble jump to get the power bomb, which luckily I got second try.
And it's always fun when the frame-perfect strat is the safe strat. And there was a little more going on to that room than looked like. Nick used a power bomb in the previous room in order to open the door right after storing the shine spark, and then jumped up to be high enough to spark all the way across to pick up the missile tank in that pillar room. And that is by far the quickest way to go through there. Normally you're expected to go through and do what Nick did on the way out, to bomb a couple of spots to raise pillars, to make a platform, and shine sparks have a lot of startup frames and end lag on them. So anywhere that we can cut out shine sparks and still be going fast, it definitely can speed up the run a bit. And with those items, we do have everything from Sector 6. We're going to just briefly dip into Sector 4, and already got prepared for this trick. So we are going to go all the way down into this flooded area through some screw attack blocks, and this will put us into Sector 2. I'm really not sure how none of that water drains into Sector 2, but I guess they have some excellent engineers working on the BSL research station. Or, well, had.
I was gonna say, hopefully I get through this room without making any mistakes, and then I'll lay a power bomb and show you why this room is called Crumble City. I think I'll lay the power bomb anyways. But every block in this room is a crumble block. So any missed space jump in this room and you sink to the... It's like quicksand. You sink and you can't jump out of it. And you have to run all the way to the right to start over. And this can be a frustrating room, especially at the very end of a hour-and-a-half long speedrun.
Absolutely, and some of those space jumps are a little bit tighter than they look, just with the distance you have to fall. And you can jump back out of some of the crumble blocks, but jumping out is a bit inconsistent how you get through it, because it depends on what frame you hit the buttons on. So not a thing that you want to rely on. We're going to now backtrack back into Sector 1 through this connector.
This item is actually another one of the RTA changes. We used to get this at the very beginning of Sector 1 cleanup, but when switching to RTA, we realized that these quick transitions coming out of Sector 2 is actually a little faster to get to it.
Interesting, the more you know. And Nick with the excellent use of an R shot there to continue the space boost while shooting, not losing any momentum, and able to make it just a little bit quicker into that room. And then laying a power bomb before picking up the missile tank. That'll allow it to go off while collecting the missile tank, and thus, if Nick did not lay that power bomb, the bomb block that he went through to get in there would have reformed and would have to wait for a bomb to go off to get back out. And this room, the intended strat was to freeze a couple of rippers at the top there in order to roll across them and spring ball jump over to the items on the right. But with space jump and screw attack, we choose to just jump through them and kill the rippers because that is significantly faster.
Oops.
And I guess this is the answer to what happened to all of the water from Sector 4 when you fall down into Sector 2. All collected just in one room.
Oh, quick throwback. I think it was almost an hour ago I said I broke some powerbomb blocks in this room. And here we are, able to just fall right in here without having to wait for a powerbomb to explode.
And we are going to pick up, I believe these are the last two items in the game.
There's one more item left after these two.
Okay, I couldn't remember if the main deck item got picked up after this or not.
No, that is actually the last item right next to Adam.
And this room we call Sazubi Speedway. It is right behind Sazubi, and this is one of the more difficult tricks for a casual player, as you are intended to carry a speed charge through the whole room. We do skip one of the slopes at the end to avoid startup lag. And Nick using a pause buffer in order to get the frame perfect speed store. That way he can come down with a speed charge already there and not have to build momentum running all the way across the room yet again in order to break the speed blocks for the lower item of the room. And even with a few pauses to buffer for that frame, still quicker than going all the way down to rebuild the speed. And with that, one of the interesting parts of the 100% run is that we actually exit through the main reactor. In most other categories, you would just go, after fighting Ridley, up to the Sector 1 navigation room and initiate the end sequence.
I might show off the reactor real quick, because not a lot of people get to see this reactor, but it's actually reacting. It's got a big animation going on down here that's kind of out of the way to find.
Yeah, in normal gameplay, almost no one will ever end up seeing this reactor. And yet they put the attention to detail into actually animating it without all of the vines choking it up. And now going up some portions of the initial climb with all of our upgrades to be able to make the climb very differently than we did the first time we saw it. And here is the last item in the game, laying a power bomb to be ready to get out of here before picking the item up. And preparation is definitely a lot of the name of the game in Metroid Fusion, just knowing what you need to do and setting up your escape before you actually do the thing you're doing. And running through the last save room, but where we're going, we don't need saves.
This is the part in the story where Samus and Adam have their final argument, where Adam tells her that you've done too much. He wants the parasites, and he's gonna lock you in this room until the police come to get you. And then you call him Adam by name, and the computer kind of wakes up and says, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll help you."
And this this area of the game is one of the most annoying for text mashing because you have such variable amounts of text in these boxes that it's hard to get into a rhythm when you have boxes that have just a few words and then some that fill up the entire box. So essentially what you do with text mashing is you will mash on one button, but then you have to use a different button to end the line of text because it won't respond to the same button immediately whenever you go on to the next text box. So just one way that we can speed this up a little bit for RTA. And every runner has a slightly different setup that they use for their mashing. But Nick has persuaded Adam to let us crash the BSL research station into SR388 so we can vaporize all of the X-parasites, which I'm sure none of will get out in any way. And to do that, we need to fight the SAX. And Nick getting the stun lock here, as well as using diagonal shots to give the beam more time to go through the SAX. It is a tight window to freeze or send an ice missile out after the plasma beam shot in order to hit the SAX before it can screw attack and jump away. And then 6 missiles are needed for the ice core, and Nick with the triple double, getting doubles on all of those shots. That is exactly how you want that fight to go.
Propulsion sequence activated.
And now it wouldn't be a Metroid game without setting the environment that we are on to blow up. So 3 minutes to get off the BSL research station, and I'm sure we just fought the final boss of the run, right, Nick?
Yeah, sure. I think we just go to our ship totally unopposed and just leave the game.
And getting the swag drop, using a spin jump to weave between those platforms, a little bit faster to get down, and a lot more appealing to watch. And now we are going to go for one last low height shine spark. And jumping through the door as a door fix to save just a fraction of a second, unfortunately about a frame or two late. The goal is to hit that shine spark just as you're getting to the bottom of the room. And if you get it on the lowest pixel possible, it will actually shoot you straight into the room. And oh no, it's down to 1 energy. I hope you're okay here.
Yeah, I think that Omega just did like 19,000 damage to me. Quite the hit.
Yeah, and interestingly, the Omega Metroid in this game, not vulnerable to missiles in any way. But the SAX comes down, feels more threatened by the Omega Metroid. And now that we have Ice Beam, all you have to do is wait a second, then just start shooting up and you get a stun lock. And that is going to be it. Time will be coming up when Samus faces forward after being beamed into the ship.
It's time.
Congratulations, good game.
Alrighty.
And so that was Metroid Fusion 100%.
Dear Force anyways. Thanks to the GGs, everybody.
Thank you so much for stopping by, both of you, everyone on the couch, the runner. You guys all did, or gals and guys, all did a great job. Thank you for coming by to support the charity. So much being done here to support multiple sclerosis and make sure that we're ending that and supporting the society's mission.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the cost.
Well, anytime. I really enjoy pretty much all the 2D Metroids that I played. So they're fun to speedrun, fun to play. If you're gonna play it, may as well get all the items.
Well, thank you so much once again. I mean, and also you're double dipping today. That was your second run, and it takes a lot mentally to perform on that kind of level. Big shout outs to Azure, who ran on the first day total of 6.5 hours across 2 runs.
Ooh.
So that was insane. Yeah, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, any percent, no out of bounds, I believe, and then Super Metroid Redesign 100%. So that was quite something. But yeah.
All right, with that, I believe we're going to be signing off of Metroid Fusion, but don't leave just yet, chat. Stick around for the end of the marathon and the final words from our organizers.
Get ready, everyone. We'll be right back.